righty. So this morning we have one of our very own, Miss Susan Breed. Yay! Give her a hand. We'd love to hear our own folks talk today. So thank you, Susan. You know, it was interesting. I was reading your resume. I had no idea about any of that stuff. As long as we've known each other, I had no idea that you were all this fun stuff. You know. So a little bit about Susan's bio is she graduated from Brown University with a degree in English literature and also from Northwestern University with her Juris Doctor. Following law school, she was a clerk for the Illinois Appellate and Supreme Courts and had a solo law practice in Granbury, Texas. And then, of course, after retirement, she and Dennis attended Unity School of Christianity, from which they graduated and were ordained in 2010. So you got quite the impressive resume here, Susan. Good job. And her title of her talk today is one that never gets old, no matter what, no matter what times we're living in. It just seems to never get old, and it's kindness. So we look forward to the message that you'll be sharing today. So Susan, take it away.
I forgot to include on my resume, horse trainer and artist, jack of all trades and master of none.
Well, thanks for adding that caveat in there. We needed to know that.
You may soon find out. So today I'm going to talk about kindness, which I talked about a couple of years ago when we were in, I think, Diana's School of Dance. And it's a topic that really never gets old. And there'll be a little redundancy, but there'll be some new things. And it's going to be a little different in the sense that we normally hold our conversation to coffee talk time. But this talk will be after the initial setup. It'll be I'll ask for interaction from those of you who feel you have something that you'd like to contribute. And I know everybody knows something about kindness. We all have heard of acts of great heroism, and we've witnessed acts of kindness on the news, like the time the runner in a race fell down and a fellow runner stopped and picked him up and carried him on. And the stories about the autistic or the trisomy kid on the basketball court who's offered the opportunity to make the last basket and does, and is congratulated not only for his winning point by his team, but also by the opposite team. And all the audience supports him. This talk isn't about astonishing or even newsworthy acts of kindness, but instead for everyday homegrown variety. I'll tell you a story that is redundant from the last time because I think it bears repeating. It's something that Dennis and I witnessed in the little town where we retired to in southern Missouri, a town of about 650 people. Across the street from us, there was a home for what they called special people. They were people who were, or they called them simple people, same thing. Well, one day at one of the two stores that there were in this little town, we were in the one-room grocery store, and there was a checkout line. I think it was a Sunday morning, and there were about 10 of us in line behind one of the special people who was counting out his change, quarters and dimes and nickels and pennies for his $2.25 purchase. Well, he got to $2 and he was done. Meanwhile, the line is standing there very patiently. There's a forest ranger in the line with his 5-year-old daughter. And after she watches the simple person counting out his change for a while, she looks up quizzically at his father, and her father taps her on the shoulder kindly and says, "It's okay." So the guy gets to the $2 mark, and that's all the money he has, but his purchase is 2.25. Without hesitation, the ancient, decrepit checker lady pulls out a quarter from her own pocket, puts it in the till, and hands him his purchase. And the simple person turns to the rest of the line that's been waiting patiently, quietly, and he says, I love you. I love you. I love you. Even as I tell that story, it raises the hair on my arms. It was just such a beautiful example of everyday kindness. So, why do we personally care about acts of kindness? Well, as Shakespeare said about mercy, it is twice blessed. It blesses he that giveth and he that takes. It blesses the giver and the receiver. The hallmark of kindness is that it conveys to others and ourselves a sense of well-being and health. More importantly, it consciously acknowledges our oneness. It is a spiritual namaste, the Sanskrit phrase of respect, made up of two words, and nama, which means bow, praise, honor, and reverence, and stay, which means you. Another expression in namaste is the spiritual acknowledgement of the light, the God in me, and the light in you. So we do it for ourselves and others, and we both benefit. But it's more than just psychological and spiritual benefit. Mayo Clinic on its website lists multiple ways that kindness actually improves your health and the health of others in multiple ways. It lists improved mood, increased self-esteem, decreased social anxiety. Boy, is that a big one these days. And it actually, ladies, slows aging and increases lifespan. Lifespan is for the guys too. So how does kindness do this scientifically? It releases, this is going to be a short scientific lecture, I promise. It releases oxytocin into the bloodstream, which in turn reduces free radicals in the arteries and slows wrinkles. Oxytocin also reduces inflammation, which is a factor in obesity, cancer, diabetes, and stroke. Kindness decreases cortisol in your bloodstream, and cortisol is a hormone associated with stress levels. Kindness breeds optimism by increasing your serotonin, the happy chemical, which leads to joy, energy, and optimism in both the giver and the receiver. And kindness also increases your body's dopamine and its endorphins, the body's natural painkillers. That's information from the WAO site. But enough of this technical stuff. What is kindness and how do we recognize it? Well, basically, it's gentle behavior towards others and towards ourselves. But it's more than behavior, it's a kind of harboring a spirit of helpfulness, being generous and considerate without expecting anything in return. My crib sheet here. We all witness kindnesses in our everyday routines, at home, on the road, at the store, the grocery store, and even at Walmart. So let's talk together about this. I'll give an example or two in each of these categories, and then I'll ask you to reflect, see if that triggers something that you remember that you'd like to share that you noticed in a simple everyday kindness situation. So at this point, so that we can respond easily and quickly, go ahead and unmute yourselves. And if you're going to cough, mute yourself again, which I'll try to do too. So a couple of examples that I thought of at-home kindnesses is when your partner listens to you attentively and non-judgmentally. And when I'm at home and Dennis does something to trigger me, And I ask him, why did you do that? That's not kind. And I get an unkind response, which is to be expected. He says, I did it just to piss you off. So if I take a breath and remind myself the truth, I know that Dennis is always on my side, doing his best to make me happy. And then I ask what I want in a kind, gentle way, and we both feel good. So if that's reminded you of something that you've observed or done at home, that's a kindness, large or small, and you'd like to share it, just unmute yourself. Nobody has unmuted themselves, so go ahead and do that. And while you're doing that, be thinking about something that you would be willing to share. Raise your hand if you have something. Doug.
One of my New Year's resolution is to improve my kindness while I'm driving. And so I have become more patient with other drivers, and I have been more willing to let people become in front of me when they want to change lanes or come off an entry ramp and want to get onto the flow of things. And I've just noticed that each time that I choose to allow others to precede me, that I not only feel calmer, but I believe they do as well. And so that a willingness to share the road and to share the space and to not be competitive in terms of how fast I get down the road and all of that just seems to make things a little bit better.
Amen. Actually, I have a whole category of kindness on the road, and you have already led into it, but let's finish up a little more of kindness at home if we can, if anybody has anything else to share. Like Tim?
Oh, I wasn't having anything yet.
Oh, I saw your picture light up. Who else has something they'd like to share from at home?
Okay. I was out walking our dog, and Mickey and I are headed to Minnesota this week, and I spoke to a neighbor whose dog was also walking with us, and she said that actually, and these folks are relatively new to, they moved in just several months ago, and they have a snowplow. And she said to me, while you're gone, we'll plow your driveway. That's it. That's all it was.
Great. Yeah,
Nice.
speaking of dogs,
Yeah.
if you're out walking your dog in a neighborhood, as we are now for the first time in our entire married life, we're in a neighborhood, be sure to carry your little doggy repair pouch with you. It's a total act of kindness if he leaves a deposit to pick it up as you go.
I have a story of kindness from my childhood. I had an older brother who was really very, very kind to me. He was just the best big brother you could ever have. And we lived out in the country, and one time we got together with the neighborhood boys, and we decided to go. This is in South Louisiana, where they eat crawfish. So we went crawfishing, and we walked way out in the woods, and one of the guys knew where there was an old wagon bridge over a big canal, big coulee, and we went on there, and we had chicken necks and stuff, and we put them on a little piece of string and put them down in the water and catch a crawfish one at a time. And on the bridge, it was an old bridge, and I fell through. It had a rotten board or something. I fell through into the little bayou or creek, and my brother came down and he picked me up. I was probably about 5 or 6, and I can remember this so clear. He got me out of there, and I was all muddy and everything, and I was crying. And he looked at me and he said, "Hey, Gregory," he said, "you're the best bait of all. There's crawfish all over you." Made me laugh. That was my brother. he was always like that. He was so wonderful. He was such a beautiful, beautiful person all his life. He died about 10 years ago. And oh man, I hope there is a heaven and I'll see my brother again.
That reminds me of the story that Dennis always tells when he was a kid and visited some hillbilly cousins up in Pinkham Creek in Montana, and he went fishing. You tell the rest of the story.
Well, I just didn't know anything about fishing at all, and this was really in the sticks. Long story short, we went out to a little stream, and nobody was catching anything. But I was over on the bridge over the stream, and I caught a fish, and I was amazed, and I pulled it up, and it didn't flop around too much, but it was definitely still alive. And so after we got done, later I found out, I don't remember how, that they had caught the fish earlier and had put it on my line underneath the bridge while I wasn't looking, so I could catch a fish. And it did make an impression, and I loved all them for it so much more than the fish, of course. You know, it's just act of kindness.
Anybody else have a kindness at home story, or shall we move on to another category?
Yeah, Susan, I do. It isn't one thing, it's a general way of being. My husband, Richard, never had to be asked to do anything around the house. I would turn around and the dishes would be washed or the dishwasher unloaded and the trash would be emptied and the bed would be made and the laundry would be moved to the dryer. And I never had to ask ever.
Wow.
It was such a gift.
Have you been asked to clone him?
I have. I am greatly blessed. Yes. Yeah.
Terry.
I also have a really kind husband. He puts up with me, but he's also making me breakfast every morning. I have a health condition and I'm trying to gain weight. And he has offered to give it to me from him. I wish it could work that way, but it doesn't. But he is also very kind-hearted. And since I've retired, actually since COVID, we found out for the first time how well we could work together. And I'm really blessed to have him in my life. Thanks.
Lovely. Yes, Dennis always makes me coffee in the morning and brings it to me. And he kisses me before he goes to bed, usually an hour before I do. So it's a goodbye, but it's nevertheless a kiss, and I love it. Who else? Did somebody else want to raise their hand? Thought I saw somebody waving over there. Okay, well,
I was just offering to give Terry some of my weight.
Oh,
I wish it were so easy.
Generosity everywhere.
So now we're getting to Doug's. We're getting Doug's category, and a couple of examples that I have noticed. When you get to a four-way stop and it's a tie with another car as to when you get there, if you just kind of wave them on and let them go first, that's an act of kindness and makes me feel good, and I bet it makes them feel good too, instead of me jamming on the gas and going through first. And I have also learned that when I refrain giving the finger to somebody and thinking ugly thoughts about them when they cut me off in traffic, I feel kindness to myself and others. That's it. So who else has just on the road stories? Doug has offered a couple of examples. When you let somebody on the on-ramp and let them merge into traffic comfortably. What other ones, when you're on the road, can you think of?
This is a pretty big one. Mickey and I were driving back from Minnesota to Kansas City, and a gigantic tire came bounding across the highway and hit our windshield. And normally, I think that sort of thing would kill you. You know, you sort of like, anyway. So, but Mickey was driving and she managed to get the car to the side of the road, and a truck, a Walmart truck behind us saw the whole thing. The driver came in up behind us and stopped, got out, checked us, and asked how we were and all that. And we were, don't, you're not dead. You're all right, you know. And he called police for us, and spoke to the cop who did come about how the tire came across the median and hit us, and described the vehicle from where it came. And the man just was with us the whole time, and calmed us down and gave us coffee, and then drove away. It was amazing.
Nice.
Just
You know, that reminds me of an accident that we nearly had. We had an old Mercedes convertible, you know, the classic type is really snazzy. Man, that thing, I really learned how that thing could hug the road, because we were driving home late at night. Dennis had been on duty at a hospital in Fort Worth, and it was dead dark, and we had the convertible top down, and he was asleep in the passenger seat going south on a dark road. And probably 2 car lengths ahead of me, of course, we were going on a highway speed of about 65. There was a dark horse going south in our lane. Nobody on it, just a loose horse. We have heard of people being killed by deer or cows or horses landing in their lap. So I yanked the car instinctively. I just yanked it to the right, and we did a full donut in the middle of the highway. Luckily, it was late at night and there was no traffic in those lanes, but we just spun the 360 in that old Mercedes on the road. And when I got done with it, Dennis is sitting up saying, "What's going on?" And I told him, and he said, "Well, you better get out of the middle of the road." So I was so shaken up, I had just stopped. We pulled over, and like you, somebody who had seen the donut in the middle of the road from a distance back stopped to check what had happened and that we were safe. And it was reassuring that people didn't just keep whizzing by. Who else has done or seen a kindness on the road?
Well, all this reminds me of something that happened to us on New Year's Eve. We were on our way to Mickey and Jeff's house, and Mickey had called to see if I could bring something from home. So I stopped, and it's very dark out here. There aren't street lights. So I was backing up on this hill and to turn to the right and go around on a side street and go home and get this meat thermometer. And Joe said, "Don't back up on a hill," you know, so I stopped. And then I thought I was on the road, but I was not actually. So I turned right and ended up in a ditch. And we were stuck there and tried to call a tow truck, and it was going to be at least an hour for them to get to us. And so many people stopped to help. And finally, a guy stopped and he said, "Well, I've got a big truck and a chain." So he just went back to his house, got his big, huge truck and his chain, and just pulled us right out. And we were on our way. And thank God my car was fine. And it was all good, but it was just wonderful.
And the meat thermometer was really perfect to have too. So thanks for that.
What'd you say?
Oh, the meat thermometer, we really needed it. So you went. That's great.
Yeah. So that was just so kind.
Holly, that reminds me of Dennis's grandmother's favorite expression. What happened to you was a good bad thing.
Right.
By the time you got done with the bad thing, it had turned into a good experience and a reaffirmation of your connection with other people.
Yes.
And even if your car had been damaged, you still would have had that connection.
Yes. Yeah. It was great. A lot of people stopped to ask. So it was I saw a lot of kindness.
Yes. Who else has something that they'd like to share?
Well, this was our family thing, so you're familiar with this one, but and I'll make it short. But we were up on our way to Altus, Oklahoma in the middle of the winter from Texas. And it was Christmas time and really snowy and gross and freezing cold. And we were in a diesel car, and the diesel froze up. And we're out on a back street, not back street, but we were out on the road where wasn't very many people out. It was Christmas time and it was snowy, and a guy, and we were thinking, we might freeze here because we're out in the middle of nowhere, and there was a little light in the distance. It seems like I was pretty young. This has been a long time ago. Anyway, very long story short, a guy in a Porsche pulled up and said, "Hey, can I
it was
help?"
a Corvette, Heather.
Yeah.
Okay,
small car.
it was a very
Corvette.
fancy small car
Yeah.
with one seat, and family of 4 in the car. Anyway, so a very long story short, he helped us out, and we ended up getting to the local hospital, which was a very small hospital, who offered to have us stay there overnight while we got the car warmed up and repaired or whatever. But I mean, there were a couple of people that we definitely never would have ever seen again, didn't ever see again, that took their time out to help us.
Yes, we actually got hospital beds and Christmas candy to sleep in hospital beds, and homemade Christmas candy. It turned out to be a good, bad thing. And it was a little tight in the Corvette with all 4 of us in it. Or how do we do that even? I don't even remember.
We were much thinner then.
Very much center there, yeah.
That's true. It seems like he went and got help, maybe. I don't think all of us got in the little car.
I don't know. I remember sitting on somebody's lap and feeling squeezed. Who else has something they'd like to share? All right. Well, if there's nothing else on the road, let me go on to other examples. So, at the grocery store, these are everyday examples that we all have. I shop at Aldi's a lot. And I tell you what, Aldi's shoppers are the kindest people I have ever met. If you want a good dose of kindness, go to Aldi's. You go on the way in and somebody will offer you their shopping cart that they haven't yet plugged in and retrieved their quarter for, but refuses to take your quarter for it. That's kindness. And when you say, well, thank you, I'll pass it on, that's kindness too. Kindness is contagious. When somebody with a full shopping cart in front of you offers to let you in with your 2 little handheld items, that's kindness. It's amazing how often that happens at Aldi's to me. I have even been the person with the 2 pieces and have looked at the person in front with a huge shopping cart and asked, would you mind if I cut in line for you? And I've done that several times, and I've never been refused. It's just people, I think, are waiting for an opportunity to be kind, and sometimes they don't recognize it spontaneously. So sometimes you can create it. How about you when you're shopping? Have you had experiences that you can think of that seemed like acts of kindness that you did or others did?
I was at Price Chopper one time, and somebody was there, and they had some things like a little stuffed animal and some things that they were buying. And I can't remember why they couldn't pay, like they didn't have their checkbook, or they weren't going to take a check or something like that. And they were going to something. And I said, just go, I'll pay for it, right? It ended up being more than I thought, but I felt good about it, right? Afterwards, and they were so grateful. And just the other day, I was into the Dollar Tree, and the same thing, the gal bought some things, but she didn't have enough money, and the clerk just told her, yeah, that's right, but it wasn't enough. And I could see that because she was looking at her thing and then all of a sudden she left, this gal left. And I thought, the clerk, that's a lot if you're picking up things for everybody, day in and day out that are short or something. So I was paying my bill and I said, was she short? Did she come up short? And he said, yeah. And I said, just put it on my tab. It was like 88 cents. I go, I think she was grateful, and
Yeah.
I felt good, right?
Yeah.
I got this poor clerk,
And I bet the clerk felt good
Yeah.
twice because he had offered and because you offered.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And the lady that got out for less, of course, felt good. Who else has something? Go ahead, Barb.
Well, I just think the lady, she was on her way to something, and I think it was a gift for something. So I'm thinking, oh, she probably was, phew, and and she was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure?"
Yeah. Who else has something from the store that they can offer?
Well, it's funny in listening to everyone's situations of kindness. It makes me feel like I really need to step up my game because I ain't doing none of this. I got some work that needs to be done, because my attitude is like, hey, I'm in a hurry. Just please get out of my way and just move. I got things to do and places to be and people to see. So this is good for me to hear this because I realize I got some work to do.
Help you out. It'll lower your blood pressure, Dan.
I know.
Susan,
You guys keep sharing these stories because you're helping me out tremendously here.
Who else had one? Greg?
I have one. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can't
Okay.
see you, but we can hear you.
Grocery store, I just remember from Hy-Vee years ago. If any of you guys shop at the Hy-Vee on Barry Road, there was a young man that worked there many years. I think he retired recently, who had Down syndrome. And he would bag groceries and get the carts. And he was, he held the job for a long time. So he was an advanced, I would say, Down syndrome person. But I was in line one day and, I had my stuff and he was bagging my stuff, and I watched it was the cashier that was working with him, where I saw this great kindness from her. She was watching him and she had, how women sometimes when they're really feeling something, they'll put their hands on their abdomen. You've seen that with women before. And she was watching him and she had her hands on her abdomen. And it was such care in her demeanor and her look and everything with him and patience. And, he bagged him up perfect like he always did. But boy, that really stuck with me, that great kindness in that woman. It really imprinted.
Thank you. We're going to be having to watch our time here, so I'm going to go through a couple. Go ahead.
It's sort of a store. It's a Hy-Vee gas station. Carolyn's very dedicated and strategic about maximizing our cents off on our fuel savers, but I can't always use the full 20 gallons, and it always seems like such a shame to waste what I can't use. And there was a guy our last visit. There was a guy right across from us, and they were sitting in the car for a long time, and eventually they finished talking, and she went in, I guess, to prepay or something. And I just asked him, I said, when I'm done, I'm going to have some leftover, and this hose will reach you, and you might as well take it, because Carolyn was so great. It was almost down to costing us nothing per gallon, and it just seemed like rather than waste it. And he was so grateful. And it was just a wonderful little pre-Christmas gift to both of us.
Oh, that's lovely. So, a couple of other quick examples that I had thought of. At Christmas time at Aldi's, I witnessed a big gaggle of loose shopping carts as people simply had left for other people to take. They were untethered with the quarters left in them, and it was a small but delightful sign of good tidings for the season, I thought. So things that you can do at the grocery store that really help, I think. Acknowledge the checker. If you're lucky enough to have a human being instead of a machine as your checker. And when your checker is obviously harried by a long line of holiday shoppers waiting to check out or just basically having a bad day, offer them a word of kindness or understanding of how difficult their job must be, or praise their efficiency at the job, or gratefulness that they're there on New Year's Eve. Just watch and see how their demeanor changes and how you yourself relax. It's kindness to everybody. I'm going to tell us a story about getting to the Walmart checker line with about a $60 worth of merchandise in my cart. And that's when I went into my purse, I didn't have my wallet. Well, I expected the checker to tell me to get lost, but instead she said, well, run out to your car and see if your wallet fell out there. I thought, oh my God. So I scurried out because there was a line of people behind me and in every other line. Well, I looked in quickly in my car and my wallet was not there. When I got back to the checkout line, I said, my wallet wasn't there, but I do have my checkbook. However, I do not have my ID. And she said, oh, I'm so sorry, but Walmart won't let me take a check without an ID. So at that point, I expected to be thrown out of line. But I took a chance and I turned around to the well-dressed gentleman directly behind me in the line who had been waiting patiently, as had everybody else, unless maybe they skipped line, I'm not sure. And I said, my check is a local check. Here's my name. Here's my address. Here's the local bank. Would you be willing to pay Walmart and I'll give you my check? This was a $60 bill. This wasn't nothing. And damned if he didn't do it. I could feel my blood pressure lower about 50 points at that. I could hardly believe his kindness, and it was lovely. So let's go on to some final thoughts on how to extend kindness to yourself. We often say things to ourselves that we would never say to a friend or a neighbor. Dennis's favorite is, oh, F myself. Instead, he could choose to say, oh my, how could I have done that better? He would probably have felt better about himself if he did. So another way to be kind to yourself is to practice being a joy spotter. That was a term that Paul Hasselbeck used last week for spotting things in your environment and in your life for which you are grateful or which just make your heart sing. Raise your consciousness to more of those things from moment to moment. And here are some other ways that you might be kinder to yourself. Give yourself credit for a job well done. Forgive yourself and others for mistakes made. As the Bible says, know that there was never anything to forgive. Recognize when you're tired. Take a nap. Recognize when you're full and stop eating. Recognize when you're feeling tense or stressed. Pardon me. And take time to check in with the daily Om online. Meditate for a few minutes. Do some yoga or stretching exercises. Take a walk or a bike ride. I often find when I'm in the middle of a fight with Dennis, taking a walk or drive makes a big difference. Get into nature. Walk barefoot in the grass. Watch out if you have a dog. Sit in your vibrating recliner a while. Take a hot shower. Or if time is short, as it often is, sit down for a moment, close your eyes, and repeat your favorite mantra a few times. Mine is, peace be still, and know that I am God. So you can create yourself some easy kindness routines. Each morning, ask yourself, what kindness can I perform for others or myself today? Each evening, as you lie down to sleep, remind yourself of the door you opened for someone, of the spilled groceries you helped pick up in the parking lot, of the hand you offered to a young mother with twins struggling to get her children and their stroller into the car. Or if you took the walk in the woods, remember the sights, the sounds, the smells of nature, of the stray dog you rescued from danger and the grateful owner who cried when you handed her pooch over safe and sound. So those are some practical and simple ways of training yourself in ways of kindness. And if you want a little structure, and this is not much, Mayo Clinic offers something online called the Kickstart Kindness Program. You can look that up and they will give you 2 ways of participating. It's not something that you actually do online. They'll just give you some lists and clues to get started on your kindness practice. So now I'm going to leave you with a quote from the Dalai Lama. Be kind whenever possible. It is always possible. And so it is.
Beautiful.
Meditation. Kyle, if you have some background music, that will be fine. And if you don't, all right. So let's take a little time to be quiet, to become unexcited. Put our feet on the floor and close your eyes if you're willing. Sit straight in your chair. Consciously relax any muscles in your body that feel tense. You might start by rolling your neck, dropping your shoulders, feeling the tenseness flow out your arms, down your arms and out your fingertips. You're breathing deeply, feeling your chest expand and your abdomen relax. Your tense thigh muscles. You move around just a bit and relax. And so with your calves. And the tenseness flows down, down, down your legs, out your feet, out your toes. And as you continue breathing deeply and slowly, be aware of your surroundings, of the people in community with you. Imagine your community as expanding to your neighborhood, where kindness abounds, if we're there to recognize it and participate. And now let your mind expand to create your community of your whole town, the whole state. Imagine the kind community embracing the entire nation, the continent, the world, and the universe. Rest in that place of kindness, in the quiet, for a moment. And now slowly return to the world. Return your consciousness to this continent, to this country, to this state, to this town, to your neighborhood, and to our CFUO community. And when you're ready, open your eyes and rejoin us.